Good afternoon, everybody. We're talking about research security, so as you can imagine, there is a lot to cover, so we're going to go ahead and get going. It's my pleasure to welcome you here today, and we have this fantastic federal panel that is joining us as well. You may recall from the agenda that this is our session description, and we're delighted to have Sarah and Jean from NSF and Michelle, and is Patricia here as well?
Patricia, are you here?
I haven't seen her.
Yeah, she was on the agenda.
Yeah. Well, if we will introduce Patricia when she's able to join us, if she is. We're delighted to have a brand new face for this particular panel today with Julie Anderson from DOE. And it's great to have you here joining us. And sitting next to her here is our old friend Jason Day from DOD. And all of these individuals have again kindly agreed to contribute their expertise. We're going to focus today on what's new since the last time we met. And because there is so much, we'll give you just this little clue here. You can see here that there's just an enormous amount of material. We're not going to go through all of this, but what we did want you to have is to have links to all of the materials. So we created this little compendium of the changes that Jim and I have seen that have come through since the last time we met. And some of these are going to be covered here today by our panelists. With that, I'm going to turn it over quickly to Jim to give even more information.
Thanks, Pamela. Welcome, everybody. I just have two quick, I'm sorry, my first slide usage, and I messed it up. So this is more of, since our last meeting, as Pamela mentioned, these are all hot links. I won't go through the details of these. I think many of the things that you just saw on the prior slide we're going to hear about today, you might hear about some of these as well. And then, again, we kind of created this slide, I think probably many, many meetings ago, of still the things that we're tracking, we're thinking about. I think the RSS committee, Lisa, your committee's right after this at 2:30. So they will be discussing a number of issues that are kind of, will be mentioned here and discussed a little bit, but we'll talk about a number of these proposals as well as we go through this. So I would like to introduce Jean Feldman from NSF as our first speaker.
Can you bring up the NSF slides, please? Oh, it's all I have to do. It's all in one package. Woo, we're getting fancy. Okay, so I again am going to tell you that I have to speak like a New Yorker because nothing against New Yorkers, but they do speak fast, and I've got a whole lot to cover. I want to make sure everyone realizes that we've got the amazing Sarah Stalker-LaHoo. She is the Deputy CRISP, or Chief of Research Security Strategy and Policy, in our Office of the Chief of Research Security Strategy and Policy, joining me. And we're going to be covering the following topics. The NSF Post-Award Foreign Financial Disclosure Report, FFDR, CHIPS and Science Act of 2022, and we're going to talk about the latest status, a lot of information about that report, and a lot of it is the latest and greatest, so I'm really happy the timing of this is really very, very important, as well as some training and resources that we have available on the FFDR. Again, this is something completely new for NSF that came out of CHIPS and Science, so we wanted to make sure everyone was familiar with what was going on there. And then certainly on the agenda, we were asked to have a status update on the Secure Center, as well as on the research training modules that you've been hearing about for many, many months now. And Sarah is going to be covering those last two topics. Okay, so let's get into it. We had another significant change, as I mentioned, from CHIPS and Science. And what the CHIPS and Science Act said, 10339B, I happen to know that off the top of my head, stated was that each recipient institution of higher education, and yes, this is limited to institutions of research or higher education only, they have to annually report all current financial support, the value of which is $50K or more, including gifts and contracts received directly or indirectly from a foreign source, which is associated with a foreign country of concern. As many of you are obviously aware by now, that's the People's Republic of China. And to answer many questions we're getting, no, that does not include Hong Kong or Taiwan. Those are not included. We also have the Democratic People's Republic of Korea or North Korea, the Russian Federation, or the Islamic Republic of Iran. Those are the 4 countries. The Secretary of State may add additional countries, but has yet to do so. And so we just want to make you aware that it remains with those 4 countries. Now, the 50K reporting requirement is an cumulative value per source per year, and this requirement only applies to direct recipients of NSF funding. It specifically eliminated reporting by any subrecipient organizations. Now, the reports have to be submitted per the PAP guide and the terms and conditions by July 31st of each calendar year in research.gov. And why did we pick July 31st? Well, we have been working closely with our colleagues at the Department of Education, who has a 117, many of you in the room are familiar with that, which requires twice a year reporting of $50,000 or more from foreign sources. So it's kind of, ours is a subset of what you would have to be submitted to the Department of Education. So for purposes of harmonization, we reached out and worked closely with our colleagues at the Department of Education. That's why much of this will look very, very familiar to you. However, we also know now that July 31st may not be such a good day. So we listened to the community, and we've provided a one-time good deal. One-time good deal, an extension of the initial report to September 3rd, 2024. After September 23rd, 2024, the report will be late. And if you are late, you must come in and ask Chris for approval to get an extension to submit that report. So, obviously, I've got some things about keeping records and that we can request copies, but what I really want to emphasize was one of the really big issues we addressed in that hearing from you, and that was the issue of tuition payments. Because obviously, if a parent wants to send their child to a university in the United States, it's very likely to be over $50K. And so we met with many research administration societies, including American Council on Education, COGR, AAU, APLU, American Association of Independent Colleges and Universities, and they said this is a real problem. So thanks, many, many thanks to the diligent work by Sarah and Rebecca. Well, we all were involved, but it was something that NSF went out on a limb on this, because there were people, I want to mention the Hill, that was very concerned about this issue. And so what we've done is made language in the PAP guide that talked about tuition payments for a specific individual are excluded from this reporting requirement. So an example, of course, would be a parent payment for a child, children, or other relatives. However, we go on to say, if the payment is in the form of a grant, scholarship, or other form of financial aid, and that it's conditioned on country of origin, all students from a particular country, students with a particular major, or students studying a particular language, but not for the benefit of a specific student, that actually is counted in that cumulative value of 50K or more. The reporting period for the first year is July 31st, 2023 through June 30, 2024. Again, however, as I mentioned, the slide does permit, now we were going to give you 30 days to submit. Now you have until September 3rd. So this is a slide that really just depicts our process from year one. The reporting period, as I just stated, was July 1st, 2023 to June 30, 2024. The effective date is May 20, 2024. So that means any new award or funding amendment on an existing award will invoke this new reporting requirement. It's going to, frankly, folks, it's going to impact everybody in this room, obviously. But we put out some scenarios that we wanted to quickly go through. So you have an effective date on your new award or a funding amendment on an existing award that started before May 20. Is there a reporting requirement? No, because your institution does not have the reporting term and condition and is not required to report. Another scenario, effective date of new award or funding amendment on existing award starts on or after May 20, but 2024, but on or before June 30, 2024. Yes, you are required to report. And the one that's causing some of the most confusion is the effective date of the new award or funding amendment on the existing award starts after June 30, 2024. You are not required to submit in 2024 because it didn't meet that reporting parameter. However, you will be required to submit in 2025. So we want to make it very clear that I have mentioned that there is this grace period. If you look at the PAP guide, and if you look at the award terms and conditions, it's still going to say July 31st. It is only when you go into the actual reporting system will you see, because we can't change the PAP guide or term and condition, they're already issued. You will see that it has been extended, and we, of course, will honor that extension. You will get lovely little notices for those that are impacted from our Office of the Chief,
Office of the Chief of Research Security?
Chief Information Officer. We just changed it, they just changed their name and now I'm confused. Office of the Chief Information Officer. And by the way, folks, these people have been amazing. Standing up, the couple people that are here from OCIO that were involved in this, we keep changing the requirements on them. And they're like, you guys have to stop. We have to build a system. And so we really effectively have been meeting for really heavily since December to finalize the requirements day by day. So they've been amazing and so supportive of our activities. So some of the key takeaways is that we came up listening to ACE and COGR and AAU and APLU. They said you do realize that because of 117 reporting, we often have particular people at our institution that are responsible for this role. And what we had originally done is given the role, making the person that could submit anybody that was a designated AOR. And they're going, but these people aren't AORs. So we listened, and we came up with, it's not the best name in the world, but it's the Foreign Financial Disclosure Report Preparer. Maybe FDP could help us come up with a better name, but that is the role. And so all AORs were given that role, but your institution can remove that ability if you don't want all of your people involved and want to eliminate them from all the lovely emails they will get. You can remove that role for any AOR that is not involved in the process. So only one Foreign Financial Disclosure Report can be submitted per IAG. Again, I've mentioned there will be a process we're talking about a bit later, not later today, but more information about the actual processes for extensions or amendments. So Once you submit one in research.gov, it cannot be deleted or withdrawn. It's been submitted, it's been certified, and so you can't just withdraw it. The submitted report for year one, as I've mentioned, since there is an extension, you can make changes until September 3rd. After September 3rd, if you want to change something, you're going to have to come into OCRIS for their approval as well. I've already mentioned it's only from those foreign countries of concern, those 4 foreign countries of concern. I really just want to make you aware of those basic issues. Okay, some future plans. We love the fact that institutions of higher education are not shy, folks. And when you all do not like something, you tend to let us know. And that's actually very valuable for the federal agency because it knows where we may have to take a fresh look at this. Or there's a statutory reason why we have to do it, and at least we know that. So keep that feedback coming. We've received a lot of feedback about adding a copy feature so that in the next year, if you've got something you want to resubmit as part of that report, you're able to do so. So we're going to be taking a look at that. That's on our future list. Adding the capability to download submitted reports. We know, obviously, that's something you want to do. So that is on our future list, as well as enhancing our post-submission processes. And we already have FFGR on our list of changes that we want to make for the PAP guide for 2024. We found, based on just putting that PAP guide out there, there's a lot of additional or new information that we already know we're going to have to make in 2025. Resources. We recently, obviously, the PAP guide went live May 20th or Monday. And so we have now available to you, if you have this FFDR role, there's a demo site. And you can go in and play and kick it around and kick the tires. It'll be available from May 20 through June 28th, 2024. Again, you have to have that role to be able to access it. All of the functionality is available, except you can't submit something. And we're going to delete any data that you put in there prior to the opening of the system, which the reporting period opens on July 1st, 2024. We've also got a lot of new resources that have just been added on Monday. We have got FAQs. We have got a step-by-step guide, a how-to guide, if you will, that was just posted as well. It's about 15 pages long. It is well worth taking a look at to walk you through, especially since this is new. Again, it's just to make sure there's no confusion. This isn't a grant-by-grant basis like all our other reports. This is one time of year for the institution. Save the date. We have a webinar and a demo July 9th from 2 to 3 Eastern Time. We also are going to have some virtual office hours, which will have representatives from OCRIS, Policy Office, as well as OCIO. See, I got it that right time. And so we're going to, no matter what the level of question, we're going to have representatives that can answer those questions. And those are on July 16th and July 31st. So again, that's an awful lot. I also had a bunch of slides on Malign Foreign Talent Recruitment Program, but during the question part, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take those as well. Now I'd like to turn it over to Sarah, who is going to be talking about Secure.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Jean. And sorry, I was incapacitated just last night. I had a not 2 nights ago, sorry. I've been fever-free for 24 hours, but I have a 2-year-old and 6-year-old, so somehow the viruses keep coming through my house. But I made it here. So, but is this, it's okay this far away, right? Okay, great. Okay. But so thanks so much for taking the time today. And again, I do want to also second the thanks to OCIO. You guys have been really incredible. I just want to say we have really been so thoughtful in trying to build the best, most user-friendly platform that we possibly can for you all. We couldn't tick every single box, but we really did try to, and some of the delays that were hard on OCIO were because of feedback that we continued to get from all of you. So again, this first year, we have what we have the demo, and we're just going to continue getting that feedback from you for this whole first year of implementation, and then we'll go from there. So anyway, I'm going to give you a really quick update on the Secure Center timeline. I am joined by my phenomenal colleagues and also the program director, Dr. Shauna Cox, who is managing the Secure Center Award. So if you have any specific questions, feel free, don't hesitate asking her or myself if this doesn't kind of give enough of the information overview. But we're just trying to give a snapshot because all of you have been along for the ride. The Secure Center was required in the Chips and Science Act of 2022. It's been a journey. The solicitation went out in late 23. Then we had the reviews, the panels. My staff was working so hard on those. The reverse site visit, blue ribbon panel. And now we're hoping to recommend the award either really in the next month or so. It'll then have to go through BFA review for the business review that all proposals at NSF have to go through. And the anticipated award start date is September 1st, perhaps earlier, but let's just say September 1st. Just want to really give a kudos out and thank you to Shauna Cox because she has been really hard at work on that. We had phenomenal proposals that were submitted. It was a hard decision. And anyway, we're very excited to look forward to sharing it with all of you when we can. But as we all know, and we can't say anything about award until it's officially made. Can you, I have my slides. Oopsie, sorry. Okay, and then so really quickly as well, I want to give you a quick update on the research security training modules. I think all of you are pretty familiar at this point. They were released January 31st of this year. 4 topics. These were developed by the community under cooperative agreements, 4 teams, many of the PIs here today. And really looking at those big 4 topics, really what is research security, disclosures, the ins and outs of the current research security policy. Third being, how do we manage and mitigate risk? And I really, again, I know that my boss, Dr. Rebecca Kaiser, can't be here today because she's actually at Rice University for our Research on Research Security workshop. Again, we are busy. But really that 4th module is so important. It's on international collaboration. I think that we're hearing a lot from the community that there's a lot of risk aversion, and we understand that, but it's also unfortunate. And I know that it's on us as the research funding agencies and the U.S. government that we have to provide those clear lines in the sand for you. And we don't want over-interpretation of the guidelines and risk aversion because we want principled international collaboration. It's what keeps us at the top of the top, bringing the most brilliant minds together. And if we're shying away from legitimate collaboration, it's really going to be to the demise of our progress in the country and really bringing the benefit to society. So really want to foot stomp that again, I think sometimes it's safer to say no, but it's really, it's not what we want. And we're trying to provide clarity as much as we possibly can to you. And actually after this panel on the Research Security Subcommittee, I serve as a co-chair on that. I'll be diving into a huge new policy that we're rolling out that is trying to provide those lines in the sand so everyone does feel more comfortable about where they can engage in legitimate international collaboration and where NSF does perceive some potential risk. So hopefully that would also bring some clarity to all of you. Again, you know that they're available on the website. So these modules are available to everyone. Lots of options. They're web-based. You can just take them online, but you can also download them, integrate them into your entire learning management system. Just to foot stomp again, we have provided these and funded these to provide to the community to help satisfy the research security training requirement that is in Chips and Science and NSPM 33, but you are not required to use them. We have done this to provide support, try to alleviate some of the administrative burden to all of you. So again, this is something that is not required, but we're trying to provide as much support as we can to you, knowing that the landscape is changing so quickly and there's a lot happening, but we want to be providing as much support and services as we can. these modules, the Secure Center, really everything that we've been talking about. Okay, so I'm going to stop there because we have a lot of my esteemed colleagues, but any questions, of course, after, happy to take. Great. Thank you.
No, it's okay. I thought you were going to sit with me. If I thought standing would make a difference for you guys, I probably would stand, but I'm about the same height anyway, so it doesn't matter.
She just doesn't do anything I do, so.
Well, that's a good thing. So we promised to give you an update on our implementation of the Common Forms BioSketch and current pending other support. And so I think you guys heard earlier in the NIH update that we are looking to make this effective for applications and RPPRs on or after May 25th. And while Forms I will be effective January 1st, what we tried to do was not do this in phases, but actually wait until we had a good sense of what Science CV would be able to roll out, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the next bullet. We wanted to make it a one-stop shop, and so what we did was we wanted to, as we roll it out, we want to make this a requirement for our recipients to use Science CV for completing and certifying your Common Forms. And you all know that the NSF has done this already, and we wanted to make sure that it was rolled out nicely, and then we would just roll behind it. And then if there were problems or concerns, we would let Jean handle it, and then and then Michelle and NIH and Mike Lauer and all of us can still look good. So. But seriously, one of the things that we really wanted to see is whether or not, what were some of the hiccups. Mm-hmm. And Jean and I talked a little bit about this, and I got her permission to do it, so I say that jokingly, but I did. I said, it just doesn't make sense for all of us to go out wobbly. And you're a little bit more stable than we are right now. So you go out, and then we will do your lessons learned, and we will take it from there. So the next bullet talks about the fact that NIH is going to require ORCID ID as the PID. Yes, thank you. Clap again. That just makes me feel good. And because when I get to certain points, I'm not sure I'm going to get a clap. But we also have separate supplemental forms. So while we are implementing the Common Forms in its entirety, we are not deviating from the Common Forms, and we're going to do that in our instructions, that sort of thing. We do have some peer review regulations that we have to abide by at the outset. Now, that doesn't mean that it won't change, and I'm sure that as we partner with FDP and talk to Koger and others, we might be able to find a common way forward and fall under the existing or the new labels within the Common Forms, but we didn't feel we could do that just yet because we wanted to get buy-in, first of all, and first and foremost, from NIH leadership and from our colleagues across NIH, because this definitely impacts our ICs and our programs. And we want to make sure that, with the simplified review framework coming out, we didn't want to disturb or disrupt that either. We're also looking at how to streamline the NOFOs, and so just as someone said earlier today, at some point you got to stop and let us just implement what we can implement, and then we go from there. So NIH heard you on that. Okay. So we are working OPERA, the Office of Policy for Extramural Research Administration, under the Office of Extramural Research, is working with Science CV very closely to develop an API to assist entities with implementing the full use of Science CV in May 2025. And COSMA did a nice job this morning reminding everyone that we need to continue to use the current Common Forms, or yes, until NIH until the common forms are issued, we need to use the Forms I, and that'll be January 1. And we will be requiring still just-in-time RPPRs and that kind of thing, but we want to make sure that we don't do anything to disrupt our rollout and implementation of Forms I, which will be coming out in January. So things will remain the same, but the common forms are on hold until May. We will be allowing for the electronic signatures, and we've talked a lot about that. Supporting documentation is required, of course. And then the failure to follow our format may cause NIH to withdraw the applications, and I just want to make sure that everyone is on notice with that, and Cosima mentioned that earlier today. Now, with regard to our research security program guidelines, we were very interested in making sure that we aligned ourselves with our colleagues here. And so NSF took the lead to have us all kind of get together and talk through some of the things that we thought we wanted to, and this was Rebecca Kaiser. And I say that lovingly, but, and so she definitely wanted us to get together, and we had a good conversation with our colleague Jason, who gave some input. So we just laid out here kind of the comments that we provided to OSTP. We sent our implementation plan for the disclosure requirements a couple of weeks ago, and we anticipate that we will be rolling it out. We don't anticipate that there will be any pushback from OSTP, given the fact that we are rolling it out in whole cloth. So, you know, light candles and all that. You never know. So NIH has recommended, though, that we incorporate the institutional certifications into SAM as a part of the standard assurances. And I think we all here agreed to that. We didn't very much like at all the term that was used, attest, throughout the research security program document. So we really wanted to stick with the common term of certify. And then we talked about making sure that the clarifying edits are regarding the term of sensitive R&D. We suggested that, you know, referring to risks and risk mitigations instead is exactly what we've been talking about and what we've heard from you guys, and we didn't want to move away from that. And this, again, I'm putting this out that NIH made the recommendations because I can only speak for NIH, but I do know that my colleagues here were very much leading the way in those discussions as well. And then, of course, the criteria for agencies to implement additional requirements should align with the disclosure policy memorandum. Jean and I have sweat, blood, and tears, and to move away from that, I don't think is an ideal move. So this is what we put forward, and we are waiting to hear back. So just to give you a little peek inside of our timeline, we started already with the guide notice. Cosima and her team worked extremely hard across the enterprise on so many different areas. You cannot imagine what a yeoman's job and a large portfolio that is. So kudos to you and your team, Cosima, and to all of our OER colleagues and NIH colleagues as well. And then, of course, including the Common Forms update. We spend weekly meetings talking about the Common Forms and how we're going to implement that, how we're going to implement it within the NIH, and how we're going to do some training across and between ICs so that everybody gets the same staff training, and you will hear the same thing. Don't quote me on this. I'm just saying we're trying to implement training so that we can make sure that this is implemented across the board. I don't know that we will have a challenge because we're really excited about the fact that we're working internally with the IT tools working group to try to gather structured data and build an internal API so that ICs can plug and play and look at all of the information that comes in, which will save you guys a great deal of time from getting calls from ICs for the same PI over and over and over again. And then we, of course, we've published our Forms I 60-day Federal Register notice, or it's going to be published, but Why isn't it checked? Oh. It's out. 22nd, okay. I know it went through the internal approval process, but congratulations, team. And then, of course, the external outreach to FDP is today. And then just looking forward, you know, a few bullets on what we're doing in terms of publishing the guide notice and making sure that we collaborate continually with Science CV on the development of the electronic NIH Common Form and the API, and then beginning that process of looking at everything that we touch internally, which is going to be a huge, super huge job. Because everything we have in terms of web pages, in terms of, you know, our FAQs, in terms of NIH grants administration manuals, I mean, it's just a lot to do. And we want to make sure that it's through and through. If we're going to be training our staff, they need to have the latest and greatest on what we're doing there. And then, so in July, we're going to publish the forms, submit PRA packages, and then, of course, submit the RCF for the common forms to OIRA OMB. In the fall, we plan to publish the new Forms I, and then we will, of course, send out guide notices, because that's what we like to do to make sure you guys are reminded, and then continue with our external communications through various means. And then in early 2025, we're going to start the user acceptance testing to roll out the API, and we'll be working with you guys on that. We think that is very important, so we will definitely be reaching in to FDP. So, you know, I'm excited about that. So this is on our timeline, and we'll probably be reaching out to Maria and Michelle and Alex on that. And then finally, just to sum it up, applicants will be required to enter their ORCID ID into Science CV in the PID section of the Common Forms. The forms will be required May 2025, and NIH will require the applicants, of course, to link your ORCID ID to your ERA Commons profile. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague. Thank you.
Julie, I wanted to welcome you. This is Julie's, I think, first meeting. Is that correct?
It is.
Great. Thank you for coming. I think we had Dr. Harriet Kung at the last meeting, and she is now the acting director of science. Is that correct at Energy?
Correct.
Yeah. So welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. So I am the new kid on the block, so to speak. In March of 2023, the department decided to stand up the Office of Research, Technology, Economic Security. And when I say the department decided to stand that up, that was with a memo. So there was no staff, I keep joking, we still don't have permanent furniture. We finally got office space about a month ago. But meanwhile, we were asked to stand up this office, get staff, get policies and procedures in place, and also do due diligence reviews. And when I say we, I just want to also introduce Margot Morelli, who's here. She's one of the deputies for the office, and she's been in this chaos with me for the last year. And part of standing up the office, and I just say I've got a lot of new things to talk about what's going on in the department, but I know I just have a little bit of time, so I'll just touch on it. So our office was tasked with three main things, actually doing due diligence reviews from an ARTES standpoint. And I should just back up to say the term that most people use is research security. The Department of Energy covers everything from basic all the way to commercialization activities. So leadership was like, we need a broader term to encompass our entire portfolio. So that's where ARTES came from. And we don't pronounce it RTES, it's ARTES. So we've got three main functions: the due diligence, communications, and outreach. And so we've been a lot more internal facing while we were getting things stood up, but we welcome these kind of opportunities where we can talk about what we're doing. And then the other thing is information sharing within the department. and getting folks more up to speed on what ARTES is and the importance of it, and also just to get more consistency across the department. With the bipartisan infrastructure law, we got a ridiculous amount of money to implement, and leadership was like, we need to have more consistency across the department. So our office is actually, I'm sure you've all worked with a number of our different program offices, like Office of Science, EERE, ARPA-E. There's 16, 17, depending on the day. Plus, we've got our 17 national labs, and each one was doing things differently. We are never going to be uniform across the department, but there is a goal of having more consistency, and I think that helps the academic community so that you have more consistent requirements from us. And then I will just say we need to update this slide because as our office has progressed, we get calls, okay, now we need you to do this. Now we need you to do more things. So this is one of the more things. So we were also asked to lead this ARTES policy working group, and it just got stood up, again, another memo, and then just go do something with it. We've got, I think this slide says 19, but I think it's actually increased. So we've got all of these different actions that we're working on to improve these different things, and a couple of them that I think you all might be interested in is the foreign national review process. I know we get a lot of questions, and people really love that topic, and I'm sure you guys are very happy with the way it's going now, but we are looking to see, what improvements we could make there. And so hope to have some updates as we, by the end of the calendar year, probably sooner though. The other big thing on here that we get questions on, are we going to do risk matrices similar to what DoD has? And we are. Those will actually probably come out before we have permanent furniture. But we are actively working on those just so that there is more transparency in terms of what we're doing. And so in the interest of time, I will not walk through all of these, but just to get a sense of all of the things that DOE is working towards to have more consistency and more outward-facing guidance. And one day soon, we will have a website that you all can go to. I know that NSF has a wonderful website, so we're hoping to maybe copy a little bit of how they have that structured.
Don't recreate the wheel.
Common form implementation. So we are looking at May 2025. We do intend to require ORCID ID, and starting May 2025. There is a couple of things that we're looking at for the implementation of the forms. This is our general counsel at the highest level wants us to have a different certification. This is similar to the certification that we have been requiring for a number of years. And then we're also looking at how to incorporate the certification statement for the completion of the research security training. So that's not completely final, but that's just something in terms of trying to maybe use one form for some of those kinds of certifications. And so there's a team that's looking at that. And of course, this is all dependent on going through the Paperwork Reduction Act clearance process. And then, again, in the interest of time, I won't go through all of these things, but one of the things I have been instructed to emphasize over and over again with both the academic community, we also work with a lot of for-profit entities, is this need for a two-way transparency. So we are trying to build transparency, but when it comes to doing their due diligence reviews, we really are emphasizing that we get a lot of transparency from the researchers, understanding that there may be some things that in the past, before there were certain prohibitions, we do want that transparency to understand where they're at now. It also, even more, I think a bigger emphasis is when we're dealing with for-profit entities, and a lot of the universities do partner with for-profit entities, so you're seeing things in there. We've got a foreign transparency term, and it really is more geared towards the for-profit partners, but when you've got multiple types of entities on award, you're gonna see some of those terms. But we really are trying to really dig in to understand what we're funding. And then I will just say these are some of our risk review, and then I've already mentioned, so this is going to be building towards our risk matrices that you'll see. We're going to have one that's more specific to individuals on a project and the factors that we're looking at, and then what we're looking at when we're assessing entities. Again, probably that piece is more focused on the for-profit type entities, looking at their ownership and their board members, that type of thing. And then that's it. And then I think this is an important slide, so if you have questions, go ahead and write down our email addresses. And then Margot's right here. She's got an empty notebook to take down all your questions, everything, because we usually get a lot after. So thank you. I'll turn it over to Jason.
Hi, and I'm just going to sit here. I don't have slides. Sometimes clearing slides for the department is kind of difficult. But I'm Jason Day with DOD. I'm the old friend, apparently. So we also wouldn't want to strain me by having me get up and walk over to the podium, right? So in my dotage, I'll just sit here. But to give you an update on what we've been up to with the department, I hope that everyone has seen the policy that the department put out last June now, so almost a year ago. If you haven't, you can just Google DoD foreign influence, and it'll take, that's the first link on the search result, is it'll take you to the policy that the Undersecretary put out last year. What we've been up to lately is a couple of things, and one is, as everyone else has talked about, the common forms. We submitted the common form application to OMB to be able to utilize the common forms. We are not requesting any deviations from the common form that was put forward by NSF. We understand that we should hear back from OMB shortly on that application. Our hope is that once that gets approved, the plan would be that we will require all the DoD components to use that form for any of their new funding opportunity announcements that are going out for research purposes. And unlike other agencies, we don't currently implement Science CV. That is something that we're going to be looking into in the future, and I'm going to be talking to our various components on that. It's a little bit of a challenge for us because we have all of the various folks that do research of some variety, from the Army Corps of Engineers to Defense Health Agency to even the Uniformed Services University. So to get everyone on the same page on that, I think is going to take some time, but we are going to be trying to encourage the adoption of Science CV. And hopefully we will someday look like all the other agencies, and we'll all be doing the same thing. That's the goal. So that's the one thing we're doing. And I'm also going to try to go through this quickly so that we can focus on questions, because I think that's probably, the Q&A is probably the more important part of all of this. But the other thing that we're doing is, so we put out the policy. We have asked the DoD components to send to us in OSD, what are they doing to implement that? Most of them have had some form of a pilot program that they had implemented, and they have been doing some reviews of grant applications that are coming in. But what is their plan for implementing the R&E policy? And we're going to be taking a look at those. Those are due, I think, at the end of this week. And we're going to be taking a look at those and making sure that we have consistency across the department. There's a couple things we want to do. We want to make sure that, if you're submitting an application to DoD, whether that's to Army, to Navy, to Air Force, to DARPA, DTRA, what have you, that all of those are going to look pretty similar. You know what you're going to expect when you're sending in an application to us. And then also that you have some transparency on if we see something that looks like it's a challenge for us, and we come back and say, hey, we need you to make these changes to the award, to the proposal before we can make an award. That there's a clear rationale for why we're asking for something. So those are the things that we're going to be looking for when we're looking over the component implementation of the R&E policy. And I know that one of the questions that was asked was, coming into this was, what are the issues that you're having with mitigation plans, and how can we ensure that we're getting some clear rules or explanations for why you're asking for mitigation plans. I would say that if you have a challenge with that, then first and foremost, work with the DoD component, right? Work with the grant officer over there, work with the program manager, and try to get something from them. If that seems to be consistently a problem, you can also reach out to the Basic Research Office in R&E. You can reach out to myself or to my boss, Ben Dunayer. She's often speaking at these things. We also have an email inbox that can go all of sorts of questions around research security, mitigations, what have you, can go into. You can get there by, I don't want to read out the email address. That's the only thing that I should probably have a slide for, is just to put the email address up there. But I will say that you can go to basicresearch.defense.gov, and there you will find, under the Academic Research Security Program, you will find the mailbox for the academic liaison. And that's where you can go and ask us any question about any problem that you're having. As I said, first and foremost, work with the program, work with the component. But if there's some issue with that, if it seems like you have a question as to whether or not they're following the DoD policy, things like that, there can always be questions sent into our office, and we'll try to respond to those as best we're able. And with that, I think I'll just stop there, and we'll get to Q&A.
Thank you all so much. You have managed to pack an amazing amount of information into a very brief period of time. Jim and I have been getting questions in, and there are a lot of them, so we are going to try to move through these as quickly as possible, and there are questions for all of our panelists. And Jason, yes, you are an old friend, but we are not saying you're a friend who's old. Is that to say?
I liked what Michelle said that I was a good friend.
Good friend. That's better. We'll use that next time. So, Jim, do you want to start?
Great. And again, I can't tell if there's microphones out there or not. Yeah, there are. So if you have a question on the microphone, please feel free. The first couple are about the $50,000 reporting. One is, will it ever extend past institutes of higher education?
Well, the statute applied it quite specifically to institutions of higher education, and of course it was modeled after the 117 reporting. And so NSF would extend by, if we receive a statutory amendment, to extend to other types. But 117 reporting has been around for a very long time, and it has not been modified. So I anticipate if they changed one, they would likely change the other, but we would do it via statute.
Great. There's another question that the 117 reporting is based on pledges. This reporting is based on funds received. There's some discussion about harmonizing that. Any comment either way on that?
Well, ours, again, we based exactly our implementation on the exact language given to us in statute. And we believe probably the funds, the language that we got probably is more effective for us and what OCRIS needs to meet to any reports they would have to provide to the Hill or if requested by our Office of Inspector General. So again, ours was based right out of the statutory language, and we would not modify unless otherwise directed.
Thank you. Two questions about the FFDR preparer. Can you add a preparer that is not already an AOR?
Absolutely.
Another one related to how are the institutions handling the FFDR reported delegation in research.gov? Is this reporting responsibility stay with the AOR, somebody else in the Office of Sponsored Programs, somebody else in the Development Office? So I guess it's about managing delegation.
Yeah, and NSF would absolutely leave that to the institution, because obviously we know some very large institutions wanted a new role, FFDR. Some smaller ones may not handle it that way and have less staff and less offices, so they would want the AOR. And then perhaps another, we've got 3,000 different institutions that we fund annually. Of various sizes and types, and so we would leave that to the institution to manage.
And again, if you have questions or follow-up, please go to the microphone. Is the training requirement, so now we're shifting to training requirement, is it only required for institutes of higher education? What about health systems?
The FFDR or training?
The research security?
Research security training, sorry, yes, I'm sorry. The research security training.
The research security training security training under RECR is not implemented until 2025. But Sarah may want to add more about the constituency group if she envisions, because there was another CHIPS and Science provision on research security
I
training.
know, we make it really easy for you all. Yeah, there's the RACR that Jean mentioned, and then I think it's 16384, I don't know, yeah. That also is the research security training for all covered personnel, which we interpret as senior key personnel, and that will also not be required until FY25, and then you will have a year to complete it from there.
But it would be, since it's senior personnel, it would be all senior personnel under NSF proposes. Senior key persons under NSF.
Oh, yeah, just to clarify that, so the RECR is only for institutes of higher education. So private companies, small startups, they are not required to do the RECR training. The other requirement under CHIPS for just research security training purely is required for all covered personnel, despite what kind of institution you are.
Sarah, can I just check on that? Our understanding right now is that the training requirements, if I'm right, would go into effect 1 year after the research security standards are released. Is that correct? So we don't have them yet, and we're running out of May?
Well,
And
the
so-
statutory requirements, though, that modified, at least I'm just talking about the RECR.
Okay.
That in particular was an amendment to CHIPS and Science Act of 2025 and of 2022. And because we didn't have the research security modules in place, we will be implementing that in 2025.
Right, okay.
So there's all kinds of research training.
Right,
you
okay,
have to
so,
do.
so we
You
need,
just heard about 3.
right, so we need to pay attention, is what you're saying,
Yes.
to which requirement precisely it is and which is being rolled out at what
Exactly.
moment in time.
Precisely.
Okay, thanks.
Because export controls was also under that list of things you had to train for under RECR, and that also will be 2025.
Okay, there's a question here that basically says, my institution does not receive any NSF funding, but we do have other federal funding. Are we required to take the research security training?
I'm sorry, Michelle and I were just talking.
Sure. So was Michelle bothering you?
Actually, it would be the other agencies that would have to really answer that
Yeah, I would
because,
say that
Yeah.
for DOD's purposes, a lot of times when we have asked for some kind of a mitigation, one of the things that we've asked for is to take research security, and we say, hey, look, NSF has this great training, you can go take that module. That's been a big help. So yeah, that there may be other agencies, at least from DOD's perspective, that might ask for that.
right.
So Julie and Michelle, so again, the question was, my institution does not receive NSF funding, might receive energy or NIH funding. Are the faculty required to take the NSF security training?
They're not required at this time, but if, like as Jason said, if something comes up, we would definitely strongly encourage it, and we have. I'm glad.
Same answer for DOE.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to ORCID. Is NIH making ORCID a requirement reusing Science CV and common forms? NSF might consider doing the same.
NSF.
I'm sorry.
So if NIH,
We'll stop talking,
if NIH is making ORCID a requirement when using Science CV and common forms, might NSF consider doing the same?
It is on our list of proposed considerations for 2025.
And I will say we've officially entered into the consortium, so that's why it is now officially. And that was a lot of hard work. Thank you, David and Martin and others and Jean. So after years and years, we are officially in the consortium, so now that is an option for FY25. So yeah, to the extent that we can try to harmonize across the board, that is definitely something we're gonna, well,
And-
it'll be up to Jean though.
Right, well, but we are delighted to hear that other agencies are doing that, making that step the requirement to have an ORCID ID.
Oh, yes, we are.
So if that's very helpful
Oh,
sometimes.
you're saying you're glad that we're leading it finally.
Yes,
Gotcha.
yes, instead of us, we get to follow for once.
Yeah.
We're going to use that big time.
I know that's hard, I
Will NIH require that Science CV be used to generate common forms as of May 2025, or will it be an option?
May 2025,
That's right.
in my slide? Required.
Required. Okay. Command decision. For the NIH biosketches and current and pending, PI should refrain from using Science CV to generate those files until it's official in May of 2025?
Cosima.
Go to the mic because it's really hard to hear in the whole room. Or come up here.
You can use Science CV to complete the NIH BioSketch for the current version until the Common Forms are adopted. Once the Common Forms are adopted, you must use Science CV to complete the Common Forms. You cannot use the NSF Common Form in Science CV prior to the adoption for NIH.
Thank you, Cosima.
Finally, a clear answer from NIH. Sorry. Was that a hot mic? Michelle, please clarify whether the API they're working on with Science CV is for NIH to retrieve data or for institutions to put data into Science CV, or both.
First phase, put data in. Second phase, it'll be both, because remember I talked about we're going to build an internal API. Clear answer.
Oh, it's getting out of control, folks.
It's good that we're not sitting next to each other.
Wait, Jim, I also have an update really quickly. I had to confirm with Rebecca. I was like, I think that this is what OSTP did tell us. So because the research security program standards are still pending and the research security requirement in those standards is left kind of up in the air and ambiguous, OSTP has verbally said to NSF that they will respect the RST training modules to satisfy whatever is forthcoming, and that is hence why NSF is planning to make it effective in the 2025 PAPG.
Yep.
I don't know, I guess that happened bilaterally. I was like looking to my colleagues, I'm like, did OSTP say that to you? But okay, so it was verbal, so I mean, we can try to get something more. I think we have actually, because we have conveyed to them the overwhelming questions on this exact point that I've received from many of you. So that is why we were seeking clarity. So we'll figure out how to get that out in a more formal form.
Yeah,
Okay,
we can,
yeah.
OCRISP and policy can work on what kind of announcement we could make on that.
To follow up on that, Sarah, do you want to comment on any ideas around the research security standards? That's one of the questions that came in.
No, thank you.
No, that's OSTP.
No, yeah, of course. I mean, as Michelle mentioned, I mean, we're going through internal U.S. government coordination on it and working very closely and, you know, spearheading that effort and providing really strong feedback. So it is progressing. So, but we just, you know, we do have to
Respect
we have to just wait for OSTP's next steps.
Another clear comment.
From Sarah. The next question is to Energy, Julie. Will Department of Energy's certifications be in Science CV?
That's what we're hoping. We're currently exploring that right now, but that would be what we would like to happen.
DOD, will DOD require ORCID?
We are still working through the DPI policy that we're going to have, but we will be adopting something. That's, I think, what I can say at the moment. I mean, and maybe I can further clarify that, yeah, now you're going to say, like, oh, finally, clear answer from DOD. No, but there's you know, if you read the NSPM 33 guidance, right, like, it can be any DPI that you want as long as it, you know, rhymes with MORCID, right? So, like, you can fill in the blanks probably, but there's no official policy yet from DOD.
I'm loving it.
Jason, here's another one from you. Can you confirm that DOD will no longer require reporting of completed projects on current and pending support?
Of completed projects, that I believe that's in the R&E policy. If there are requirements out there in FOAs, then I'd like to know about it.
Another one for you, Jason. How will DoD require the common forms?
We plan to use that at the moment through the SF424R and our family of forms.
Another one. For DoD looking to use Science CV, would this be for bios, other support, or both?
So we'd be getting the cart before the horse with Science CV at the moment. There's just, we would need some agreement from the components that they want to go in that direction. Then we have to have some implementation policy. That's going to take some time. We're just, just like I think with some of the other things that we've done with, say, RPPR and things like that, sometimes DoD is proudly following NSF and NIH on these things.
Michelle, when NIH implements the common current and pending form, will supporting documentation submission continue to be required?
Absolutely, yes.
Very good. I think this was answered, but I'll say it again. Sarah, will any of the agencies on the panel require the NSF training modules, or will they allow institutions to implement their own as long as they meet the requirements?
Oh, yeah, I think there is no legislative requirement for the modules in any way, shape,
That's
or form.
correct.
Everyone is allowed to do their own research security training modules as they see fit, but we encourage them, and if people want to utilize the modules, we will therefore accept that as ticking that box, given the pending research security program standards. And again, we'll work on getting something formal from OSTP on that.
Yeah, I would say I think at the moment we have been asking for, I would have to go check with components who've been asking for mitigation plans, but I believe we've been asking for the NSF module, but if there is internal training then that is equivalent, then I think that's something that could be proposed to the component that's asking for that.
Great, thanks. Jason, this is another one for you. I heard that DoD is requiring recipients to have a research security policy in place by August. Is that true, and what should the policy cover since the final regs are not out yet?
So I think that the thing that people have been getting tripped up over is the policy on malign foreign talent recruitment programs, because that is something we mentioned in the matrix, or in the ARNI policy. There's a lot of ways that institutions, I think, could fulfill that. I don't think that has to be like a policy. I think it just, there should be a recognition that if an issue with a malign foreign talent program participant is discovered, that the university will take action.
Lisa?
Thanks so much to all of you for coming and answering all of our questions. I had faculty flag a Department of Energy funding opportunity announcement, and it talks about how they're going to be reviewing project personnel's connections with foreign countries, and that could include performance of work in travel to awardee personnel's higher education in a foreign country and partnerships with international collaborators. And they're wondering about the higher education piece. So if, for example, they got their undergraduate or graduate degree in a foreign country of concern, what the implications of that might be, and also if this is something that they should preemptively address in a proposal. Some of the questions I've received.
Do you know which program office issued the funding opportunity?
It says Office of Science. I have the number too. I could pass it on. I know I wasn't sure if you would know specifically about this one. Or.
Yeah, we'd have to take a look at the language, and sometimes program offices might put in stricter requirements depending on the technology area. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that with Margot, and we
Sure.
can take a look at that.
Will do. Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question. Jim, you got another one?
Sure. The final question is about the new language in current and pending about whether outside activities or consulting should be reported on other support. And the language talks about may have the ability to impact funding, alter time commitments, or otherwise impact scientific integrity. Do you want to?
Maybe the FDP should answer that because we use the FDP
That's
language.
exactly right. You gave it to us, Jim.
So why don't you
Thank you for coming. Pamela and I will take that offline and we can discuss it. Thank you.
Could you please join us in thanking all of our panelists? And whoever has the clicker down there, if you could keep clicking to beyond. One more. One more. One more. That's it. So for all of you, obviously everyone here is interested in research security. The research security subcommittee session is right after this one, right here. And so we also wanted to give you a little advertisement for that great session that is coming up so you can see here what that's going to be about. So we hope to see you in 15 minutes.
Thanks so much, you guys. Thanks.
Thank
That was
you.
good. Thank you. Julie, I want to apologize on behalf of